Born in Queens, New York, in 1961, Sean Patrick Hannity is an American politician. Growing up in a close-knit Irish-American home as the youngest of four kids. Hugh was his dad and worked as a court officer. Lillian was his mom and worked as a prison officer at a county jail. The life wasn't fancy, but it was based on discipline and community. As a child, Sean was known to be stubborn, the kind of stubbornness that can either drive parents crazy or help a child do great things in life. He was a normal kid from Franklin Square, Long Island, who did strange jobs, mowed lawns, and messed around with anything he could get his hands on. But the sound of the radio was the first thing that interested him. Speaking of late nights, Hannity liked to listen to talk radio while most kids were asleep. I found it interesting that voices through a speaker could start a chat across the whole country. In his early 20s, Hannity knew he didn't want a normal 9-to-5 job. He tried working as a building worker, a painter, and even a bartender. But the idea of a microphone and a crowd kept coming back to him. When he got a volunteer job at a college radio station in California, it was his big break. It wasn't fancy or paid, but to Sean, it was everything. After leaving that small station in California, Hannity moved on to bigger markets and finally had shows in Alabama and Georgia. Producers saw that he could do more than just work in radio and were drawn to his unwavering drive. The timing was just right. The United States was entering a time when political talk shows were becoming important parts of culture, and networks were looking for someone with Hannity's strong look. He had a big change in his life in 1996. He was asked to co-host a new show with left commentator Alan Colmes by Fox News, which was still an ambitious newcomer at the time. The show Hannity and Colmes became popular right away. People liked the tension that came from two ideas clashing every night, and Hannity loved it. Not only did he argue, he told people they had to be heard. His voice became one of the most recognizable in America when Sean Hannity's show started as a single show after many years. During his interviews, he said bad things about policies and sometimes tried to stir up trouble. One thing stayed the same through it all: his power. However, Hannity wasn't as loud when he wasn't before the camera. His friends and coworkers often say that he is surprisingly quiet when he's not on radio, and that he values faith, loyalty, and privacy. Everyone in America saw the presenter every night. However, the man off-screen was deeply thinking. He talked a lot about his religion, his family, and the simple things he missed from his childhood, like Sunday dinners, hearing his parents' voices, and being honest just because he came from a poor family. And for many people who knew him, it was clear that Sean Hannity wanted peace in his personal life more than anything else. At that point, his story takes a turn he didn't expect. "I really think that I can't do anything by myself. Everyone and everything in this world is a gift from God, in my opinion." Shannon Hannity was just a young radio host trying to make it before he became famous and joined Fox News. So he met the woman who would become a very important part of his life in those early years. Rhoda Rhodes. In Huntsville, Alabama, Jill worked as a reporter for a neighborhood newspaper. Hannity would call her for story ideas when she first heard his voice on the radio, but soon those business calls turned into personal ones. Both were young, driven, and eager to make a name for themselves. Something sparkly happened, and it quickly grew into something bigger. It was 1993 when they got married. The event wasn't very fancy. The message was simple, from the heart, and full of the hope of two people ready to take on the world together. Jill was often seen by Hannity as his rock and the calm in his storm. Their family grew as his job did. Their first child, a boy named Patrick, was born in 1998. 3 years after that, they had a girl named Mary Kelly. Persons who knew Hannity during those years frequently observed a various aspect of him. The father who went to his kids' tennis games. No matter how busy he was, the husband made sure his family stayed close. Nevertheless, being famous always has a price. As Hannity's career took off, the long hours, constant travel, and attention from fans started to wear him down. His marriage began to slowly fall apart. He never said anything about it in public. People who are close to the couple say that living under a microscope for years slowly built an unseen wall between them. Jill and Sean broke up in 2019 after being together for more than 20 years. There was none of the drama or scandal that usually follows a famous breakup when this one was finalized. No angry statements or tell-all interviews were made. It was just two people who had lived together choosing to go their separate ways. But that quiet said a lot if you paid attention. It showed they cared about their kids as well as each other. Even after they broke up, Hannity and Rhodes continued to parent together with a lot of kindness. Friends say Hannity stayed very involved in their lives, and their kids stayed their top concern. Patrick always felt his father's presence, especially when he played tennis at Wake Forest University. For Mary, Hannity was the kind of dad who always made time for her schoolwork and sports. But Sean had a hard time during that time in private. He knew how to run things, like talks, stories, and public opinion. It's not possible to control love or argue away loss, though. People who worked with him at that time noticed a small change. That man who used to fill every void with confidence started to talk a little less quickly and think a little more deeply. He began to think about things more, drawing on his faith in the quiet parts of his own life. Friends say he shut down even more, but they say he was just being watchful. He didn't talk about relationships at all, and he didn't even answer lighthearted questions about dating on air. There were a lot of people who thought Sean Hannity had given up on love. But there was something else going on behind that guarded front. A slow and quiet look at what love might be like a second time around. He had seen fame grow and fall, success peaks and valleys, and the pain of heartbreak. He had established a job that needed all of his focus and had learned that life is not always easy to plan out like a TV show. When he talked about meeting the love of his life when he was 63 years old, it hit me differently. Sean Hannity is a conservative, so no, there is no act going on here. Don't call me Ted Capel. I'm a particular person. People know that this is a conservative show. I really think that I can't do anything by myself. Everything in this world is a gift, in my opinion. Soon after his marriage ended, Sean Hannity didn't say anything big in public. He kept showing up, which was what he always did. A lot of people watched him every night to hear his sharp political analysis and unwavering comments. Behind the camera, though, everything was quiet. People who knew him best say that he started putting moments ahead of important events. He kept in touch with old friends, supported his kids' activities, and even picked up new interests that had nothing to do with politics or TV. That change was very big for a man whose life was always based on schedules. Yet, don't get the wrong idea, Hannity's work never stopped. His show kept doing very well and is now one of the most listened to shows in the United States. His daily TV show continued to get a lot of viewers. But there was something different about him. The angry tone was still there, but it was a man learning how to keep his cool. In a casual comment, he once seemed to imply that he had learned how important it is to be thankful for the things that really matter: health, faith, family, and peace. It looked like he was no longer interested in seeking approval. That was a huge realization for someone who had spent decades in the American media storm. During those quiet years, Hannity set up a pattern based on being consistent. In the early morning, he works out, prays, and then goes right to work. Peers said that he became so disciplined that he was almost like a monk. He never dated in public, went to parties with a lot of famous people, or fed the rumors. He was very protective of his privacy, but there was still a desire inside him. For friendship, not exactly love, the kind that makes you feel seen when the cameras are off. No matter how great you are, everyone feels lonely sometimes. It wouldn't be easy for Hannity to let someone back into his private life because he had made it so secure. That's not what he knew. The next part of his story was already there, in the same building. A woman who had been through love, loss, and strength on her own path. You got a divorce in the end, but your faith kept you strong the whole time. Yeah, that was a really hard time in my life, but we get along great and are great parents together. Since I started working at Fox News 14 years ago, my name is Ansley Hart. Ansley Hart wasn't just another TV star. In the tough world of broadcast news, she had made a name for herself. From her home state of South Carolina, Ansley brought grace and happiness to her job, and she quickly rose through the ranks to become one of Fox's most popular morning shows. But behind that happy smile and calm demeanor was a woman who had been through her fair share of sadness. She had been married twice before, but neither failed, and was now raising her daughter Hayden by herself. Her faith became her guide, something that helped her stay steady when life got rough. Many things about Sean and Ansley's lives were the same. One had been with the same network for a long time. The public had looked at both of them closely, and they were both learning how to rebuild their personal lives after losing someone close to them. They got together slowly and quietly because they were friends first. They worked together for years and had run into each other at Fox Studios. Something changed along the way, though. Things that used to be about work started to feel more personal in conversations. Hensley adored Sean's sense of order, his love for his kids, and his faith. Sean respected her for being strong, kind, and always positive. There was respect between them. Colleagues soon started to notice. They went to a lot of the same events and often followed the same people. Although rumors started to spread, Hannity and Hart refused to say anything. They chose to keep their relationship out of the public eye and never said anything positive or negative about each other. I think Sean did that on purpose. After going through a public marriage, he didn't want to let everyone into his heart again. People who knew him well saw that he was different when Ansley was around. Laughter grew. He was thinner. It was rare for actors to show such gentleness on TV. Their faith, family, and the idea that everything happens for a reason were built on the principles they shared. Going to church together became normal for them, and they often sat quietly in the back to fit in with the other people there. Real love, not a showy one with red carpets or magazine covers. Through understanding instead of showmanship, they made a link. Sean became one of Ansley's most helpful co-workers when she started making her Bible study parts. On radio, he'd praise her smarts and tell people to tune in. He would tell his friends in private how much he admired her attitude and how she was able to stay kind in a world that likes conflict. Not opposites meeting, but similarities coming together was what brought them together. Both were well-known people with private lives. Both of them are looking for something real in a business that is based on looks. Their relationship was quiet at first, but it started to grow into something more. Everyone who saw them together could tell, even though neither of them wanted to say it out loud. Hannity had hidden his feelings for years, but this link helped him feel better. Ansley saw it as a warning that love can find you when you least expect it, even after a breakup. What happened next changed everything. The confession that got a lot of attention and showed everyone that love can bring courage to even the most guarded hearts. Oh, Ansley Hart, you were with us at the Congress, right? Congratulations on the book first. Thank you very much. It wasn't during a show about politics or a planned conversation. No one was upset or loud. It was simple, an unexpected time that stays with you. Sean Hannity was speaking less loudly than normal for someone who is usually sure of himself and calm. His voice didn't sound like a man vouching for his views. Someone telling a fact he had kept to himself for a long time with a gentle honesty. He started to talk about being thankful for the people in your life who are there for you when things go wrong. Then, his words became more personal almost without warning. He talked about meeting the love of my life, someone who understood him and had been there for him through good times and bad. The usually angry host looked like a real person for a moment. He wasn't the political commentator or media force. He was just a 63-year-old man who understood how wonderful second chances can be. The viewers were shocked. That they didn't think Hannity had feelings was not the case. It was because he had never told them so freely before. That part of him had always been locked up, and he rarely talked about family or relationships. Not a single name was mentioned. That wasn't necessary. His followers knew exactly who he was talking about because they had been on his trip. When he said it, and how softly he said it, the signs were all pointing to Ansley. They weren't the only ones who made the moment powerful. Something about the way he said it, the sincerity, the pauses, and the small smile that crossed his face, changed everything. At this point in my life, I'm just grateful. I found someone who makes me better every single day. He saw himself differently than how other people saw Sean Hannity. He was no longer the man who hid behind his work. Someone else stood in his place who had lived long enough to know that being weak makes you strong. Sean Hannity has moved on to a new part of his life at age 63. He has spent decades arguing about the state of the country, but his most important realization wasn't about politics at all. It was close to home, realizing that love doesn't have a schedule and doesn't care what other people think is important. Sometimes the best things in life happen quietly, away from the cameras. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for letting Lil Me join your great Bible study. Honestly, I always need more prayers. Everyone lives in the best country God ever made. Sean Hannity's confession sent shockwaves through his normal audience. Fans who had been watching him for years were shocked. There was no spin, and there was no statement meant to get attention. It was just honest. Seeing that kind of kindness from a man whose reputation was built on being tough was very rare. People in the media moved quickly. Others said it was surprising, while others said it was refreshing. For many fans, it made him more human, making him easier to relate to. Being honest with his boss didn't hurt his image. It made it stronger. People were told that being open and honest isn't a sign of weakness at a time when that quality is becoming less common. A lot of his old fans felt even closer to him after seeing it. And it seemed like a changing point for Sean himself. He started to lose the guardedness that used to define him. He wasn't just an open book all of a sudden. He's still private, but there was a warmth and peace that came from knowing that he didn't have to hide his love anymore. He wasn't trying to reinvent himself at age 63. He accepted the truth, which was one of thanks, friendship, and the quiet confidence that comes from being loved for who you are, not what you do. That might have been the most important part of his statement. It wasn't just a deep realization for me. As a reminder, even people who seem to have everything they need are still looking for simple truths, connection, respect, and love that lasts. The story of Sean Hannity isn't just about falling in love again after a long time. Finding the strength to start over is important. You can always find happiness. That's the first thing his story teaches us. Hannity's statement came at age 63, which is when a lot of people think their story is done. We can learn from his journey that life is full of surprises, love never ends, and happiness can come back after a storm. There is a second lesson about being open and honest. People often think of stoicism as a sign of strength, but Hannity's honesty showed that sometimes being strong means letting down your guard. He did not lose power by being honest about how he felt. He became deeper. He told a lot of people that showing feeling doesn't make you weak. It makes it louder. After that comes the lesson about being thankful. The love story Hannity told wasn't presented as a big win. It was presented as a gift by him. It sounded like he had learned the hard way that success doesn't mean much if you don't have anyone to rejoice with. Because he felt grateful after everything he had been through, his statement was moving. And this may be the most important thing to remember. Persons alter. People saw a different Sean Hannity 20 years ago than the one who is on TV today. He has changed from angry and antsy to calm and grateful. Hannity's statement made one thing very clear: the heart doesn't stop beating. People keep hoping and looking, and sometimes, just when things are about to end, they find what they've been looking for the whole time. Feeling love.